Matthew was one of the richest men in the city. He owned several businesses, drove luxury cars, and lived in a grand mansion. Despite all his wealth, he felt empty and lonely. Women came into his life, but none truly loved him for who he was. They were only interested in his money and status. His father, Chief Adu, always urged him to get married. "Matthew, you're not getting any younger. Find a good wife who will take care of you and give me grandchildren." Matthew nodded whenever his father spoke, but inside he was frustrated. He had been used and dumped by so many women that he was losing hope of ever finding true love. Matthew was dating a lady named Angela. She was beautiful, smart, and always said the right things. Matthew thought she might be different from the others. One day he decided to surprise her with a visit, bringing flowers and a gift. But when he arrived at her house, he found her with one of his close friends, Dio. They were laughing and holding hands like a couple in love. Angry and heartbroken, Matthew confronted them. Angela didn't even seem sorry. "What did you expect, Matthew? I needed someone who could truly care for me. Dio might not be rich like you, but he gives me more attention." Matthew walked away, realizing that once again he had been used and deceived. He was tired of fake love. After Angela, Matthew tried again with another lady named Yemi. She was soft-spoken and seemed different from the others. Matthew believed she was honest. He even helped her with money to start a small business. But instead of investing it, Yemi ran away with the money, disappearing without a trace. Matthew felt betrayed once again. When he shared his pain with his mother, she simply said, "My son, you need to find a woman who loves you for who you are, not what you have. You're searching in the wrong places." Matthew knew she was right, but he didn't know where to look anymore. One evening, Matthew sat down with his mother, feeling defeated. "Mama, I'm tired. No woman truly loves me. They only want my money. I feel like giving up." His mother gently held his hand and said, "Matthew, maybe you need to step out of your comfort zone. Disguise yourself, live like an ordinary man for a while, and see who truly cares about you. Wealth can be a curse when it comes to finding genuine love." Her words stayed with Matthew, and he began to think about how to make this plan work. Matthew had a mechanic named Mr. Ao who often worked on his cars. One day, Matthew visited him with an unusual request. "Mr. Ao, I want to work in your shop as a mechanic apprentice. I need to live simply for a while without anyone knowing who I am." Mr. Ao was shocked. "Ogre Matthew, you, a billionaire, want to work as a mechanic? People will laugh at you." But Matthew was determined. "It's the only way I can find out who truly cares about me. I'm tired of living a life where everyone pretends because of my money." Matthew started his new life as an apprentice. He wore plain clothes, worked hard, and stayed in a small, modest room near the workshop. The other mechanics knew him as Matthew, just another young man struggling to make ends meet. In this simple life, Matthew found peace. Nobody knew him as a rich man, and he could observe people without the burden of his wealth. He hoped that this experience would lead him to someone who could love him for his heart, not his bank account. Near the workshop was a small stall where a young lady named Caroline sold rice and stew. She was an orphan who had to work hard every day just to survive. One hot afternoon, Matthew stopped by her stall, looking tired and hungry. Caroline noticed and offered to serve him some rice. But when Matthew reached into his pocket, he pretended to be broke. "I don't have any money with me. I lost it," he said, trying to keep up his disguise. Caroline looked at him and smiled. "Don't worry, you can eat first. We'll figure out the payment later." She handed him a plate of rice and stew. Matthew was deeply touched by her kindness. In a world where people always demanded something in return, Caroline showed compassion without expecting anything. From that day on, Matthew would often buy food from Caroline's stall. She got to know him as a hard-working apprentice who seemed down on his luck. Every once in a while, when he didn't have enough money, Caroline would give him food for free. "It's okay, Matthew. I know you'll pay me back one day," she would say with a warm smile. The other apprentices noticed Caroline's kindness toward Matthew and began to talk behind his back. "Why is Caroline always giving Matthew free food? She never does that for us," they complained. Matthew stayed humble and didn't let their gossip bother him. For the first time, he was beginning to see someone who might care for him genuinely, without any hidden motives. As time passed, Matthew and Caroline grew closer. She would sit with him during breaks, sharing her own struggles of growing up as an orphan. She talked about the difficulties she faced trying to run her small business and how she dreamed of a better future. Matthew admired her strength and determination. Unlike the women he had dated before, Caroline was sincere and didn't seem interested in material things. Her kindness was pure, and she didn't ask for anything in return. Matthew began to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. The other apprentices at the workshop became more jealous as they noticed the bond between Matthew and Caroline. They started spreading rumors, saying that Matthew must be using some charm to get free food from Caroline. How come she treats him so special? We've been buying from her for years, and she's never given us anything for free. Their jealousy grew, and some of them even tried to cause trouble by flirting with Caroline when Matthew wasn't around. But Caroline remained focused on her work, ignoring their advances. Matthew, unaware of the gossip, continued to enjoy the simple life he was living, slowly getting to know Caroline better. Despite his disguise, Matthew's true nature as a gentleman sometimes slipped out. He was well-mannered, respectful, and always showed concern for others. Caroline noticed these qualities and began to wonder if there was more to him than just being a poor mechanic apprentice. But she never questioned him about his past. For her, Matthew was a good friend, someone she could talk to without any pretense. One evening, Matthew found himself thinking about how happy he was around Caroline. She was different from any woman he had ever met. She had no interest in fancy clothes or expensive gifts. Her joy came from helping others and working hard. Matthew started to realize that he was falling in love with her, but he was unsure if she would feel the same way if she knew his real identity. Matthew was deeply curious about Caroline's feelings. He had grown to trust her, but after so many disappointments in the past, he wanted to be sure that she truly loved him for who he was, not for his money. To test her sincerity, Matthew decided to involve one of his wealthy friends, Larry. Larry was flashy, confident, and had a way with words. Matthew explained the plan to him. "Larry, I need you to pretend like you're interested in Caroline. Try to win her over and see if she falls for the wealth and charm like so many others did. I want to know if she's really different." Larry agreed and started texting Caroline, pretending to be a stranger who had noticed her at the rice stall. He sent her sweet messages every day, complimenting her beauty and offering to take her out. Matthew watched quietly from the background, nervous yet hopeful that Caroline would pass the test. For the first few days, Caroline was polite but distant. She didn't seem interested in Larry's advances and often ignored his attempts to flirt with her. Larry didn't give up easily and started sending her gifts, flowers, chocolates, and even an expensive handbag. But Caroline refused to accept any of it. Larry became more direct, saying things like, "You deserve better than selling rice under the hot sun, Caroline. I can give you a better life. Just say yes, and I'll take care of everything." Caroline's reply was clear and firm. "Thank you for your kindness, but I'm not interested. I'm content with my life as it is. Please stop sending me these things." Matthew, who was secretly observing everything, was impressed but still nervous. He needed to know if Caroline's heart already belonged to someone else, or if she was simply uninterested in Larry. Larry decided to push one last time to get a definite answer from Caroline. He sent her a message saying, "Caroline, I've been trying to get close to you for a while now, but you keep pushing me away. Is there someone else in your life? Why won't you give me a chance?" Caroline's reply came quickly and was more direct than before. "Whether there's someone or not is none of your business. I've told you, I'm not interested in what you're offering." Larry persisted. "If there's someone, just tell me who he is. What does he have that I don't? Money? Status? I can give you all of that and more." Caroline grew annoyed. "It's not about money or status. I care about someone who doesn't pretend to be what he's not. Someone who is kind and honest, even if he doesn't have much. Now please, leave me alone." Larry, amused by Caroline's firmness, decided to push her buttons a little more. He visited her stall one afternoon and asked directly, "Caroline, I've been good to you and tried to win your heart, but you keep turning me down. Are you in love with someone else? Why won't you tell me who it is?" Caroline looked at Larry with a mix of irritation and amusement. "Why do you care so much? I told you it's none of your business. Why can't you just accept that I'm not interested and leave me alone? Larry smiled and said, Maybe I'm just curious. Maybe I want to know what kind of man could win your strong heart. Caroline folded her arms and said with a hint of defiance, You're wasting your time, Larry. I don't care about the fancy things you're offering. The person I care about isn't rich or trying to show off. He's someone real, and that's all that matters to me. When Larry reported back to Matthew, he couldn't hide his smile. Matthew, she's definitely not interested in money. She practically told me to get lost and mind my business. If I were you, I'd be feeling pretty confident right now. Matthew felt a wave of relief. Caroline had passed the test. She wasn't tempted by Larry's wealth or charm, and it seemed that her heart was already focused on someone who lived a simple life. Someone who might just be him. But now that he knew Caroline's feelings were genuine, Matthew faced a new challenge. How would she react when she found out the truth? Would she feel betrayed by his disguise, or would she understand why he had to do it? Over the next few days, Matthew couldn't stop thinking about Caroline and how kind and loyal she had been, even when she had no idea who he truly was. He decided that it was time to start getting closer to her, to see if she felt the same way about him as he did about her. One evening after work, Matthew stayed back at the stall while Caroline was packing up. Caroline, can we talk? He asked, trying to hide his nervousness. Caroline looked up and smiled. Of course, Matthew. What's on your mind? Matthew hesitated for a moment. He didn't want to lie anymore, but also wasn't ready to reveal his true identity. I've been thinking a lot about what's really important in life. Sometimes we chase things that don't bring us happiness, like money and status. But I see that you're content with what you have, even if it's not much. Caroline nodded thoughtfully. I learned a long time ago that peace of mind is more valuable than anything else. I've seen people with money but no happiness, and I decided I don't want that for myself. Matthew's respect for Caroline grew even more. You're a rare kind of person, Caroline. It's not easy to find someone who's not chasing after wealth in this world. Caroline smiled and said softly, Thank you, Matthew. But what about you? You're always working hard at the shop. What do you want out of life? Matthew's heart raced as he thought about his answer. What he wanted most was her, but he still had to play his cards carefully. As the days passed, Matthew and Caroline continued to talk more, sharing stories about their lives, dreams and fears. Matthew found himself growing more in love with her every day. Caroline, too, seemed to enjoy his company, often looking for opportunities to spend more time together. The other apprentices noticed how close they were becoming and grew even more jealous. They started making snide remarks and jokes about Matthew, trying to embarrass him. See this Matthew, he thinks he's special because Caroline gives him free food. Maybe he's just good at begging, they would say. But Matthew didn't let their words bother him. He knew that what he was building with Caroline was real, and no amount of gossip could take that away. Matthew knew Caroline's love was genuine, but he still wanted to be completely certain that she was different from all the women who had used him in the past. He created one final test, a situation that would push her loyalty and kindness to the limit. One afternoon, while they were talking at her stall, Matthew put on a worried expression and sighed heavily. Caroline, I'm really in trouble, he said, his voice shaky. Caroline looked up from her work, immediately sensing his distress. What happened, Matthew? You look troubled. Matthew took a deep breath as he continued the act. I borrowed some money from a friend to help someone else out. But now things have gone wrong, and I can't pay it back. If I don't find a way to return the money soon, I might lose everything. My job, my place to stay, and everything I've worked for. Caroline's expression grew serious. How much do you owe? Matthew shook his head sadly. It's too much, Caroline. I've thought about every possible way, but I can't find a solution. I might have to leave the city and start over somewhere else, far away. Caroline's eyes were filled with concern as she reached out and held his hand. Matthew, don't talk like that. You can't just give up after all the hard work you've done. We'll find a way, together. You're not alone in this. Matthew's heart softened even more at her words, but he wanted to push the situation further. Caroline, I appreciate your kindness, but this is more than just a small problem. It's a lot of money. Far more than I could ever repay. Without hesitation, Caroline asked, "How much are we talking about?" Matthew hesitated, then gave her an exaggerated amount, a figure far higher than he imagined she could afford. He wanted to see how far she would be willing to go for him. Caroline went silent for a moment, deep in thought. Then she surprised him by saying, "Matthew, wait here." She hurried inside her small room behind the stall, leaving Matthew standing there puzzled. After a few minutes, she returned holding a small tin box. She opened it and showed him the contents, several bundles of cash tied with string. "Caroline, what is this?" Matthew asked, stunned. "This is my life savings," she said simply. "It's not much, but it's everything I have. I've been saving this money for years, hoping to start something better for myself one day, but I can't just stand by and watch you lose everything. Please, take it and use it to settle your debt." Matthew was speechless. He had expected her to offer support, maybe even help him think of ideas. But never in his wildest dreams had he imagined she would offer him her entire savings. The money she had worked so hard to gather, all for his sake. "Caroline, I can't accept this," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "This is your future. You've worked so hard for it. I can't take it from you." Caroline's eyes were determined as she pushed the money toward him. "What good is a future if it means watching someone I care about suffer? I've always believed that money should be used to help the people we love. Matthew, you've been nothing but kind and genuine to me, even when you didn't have much to give. Please, let me do this for you." Matthew felt tears sting his eyes. This was it. Caroline had proven, beyond any doubt, that her love for him was real. She wasn't interested in money or material things. Her heart was full of pure kindness and selflessness. He realized that he had found what he had been searching for all along. Someone who valued love, character, and loyalty over wealth. But now he faced another challenge. How would Caroline feel when she discovered the truth? Would she be hurt or angry that he had put her through all these tests? Matthew knew that it was time to reveal everything. He had to tell her who he really was, and trust that she would understand why he had to do it. Matthew held Caroline's hand, feeling both fear and hope twisting inside him. The moment he had been dreading was finally here, the time to reveal the truth about who he really was. Caroline had shown him more kindness than he could have imagined, but now he owed her the truth. He began, his voice unsteady as he confessed everything. Caroline watched him, concern growing in her eyes as she listened. When he finally admitted that he wasn't just a poor mechanic apprentice, but a wealthy businessman living a lie, her shock was clear. She pulled her hand away, eyes wide in disbelief. The words came out slowly, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her confusion and hurt were obvious as she tried to process the revelation that Matthew was actually rich and had been pretending all along. Matthew felt a wave of guilt as he explained why he'd done it. He told her about the many women who only loved him for his money, how they all saw him as a walking wallet instead of a person. His voice softened with regret as he shared the heartache he'd endured, how betrayal after betrayal had left him unable to trust anyone. It was why he chose to live this simple life, hoping to find someone who would see past the wealth and love him for who he really was. Caroline's face was a mixture of surprise and hurt as she realized the entire time they'd known each other, she had been part of a test. The friendship they'd built, the moments they'd shared. Was any of it real? Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she looked down, the pain evident in her expression. She felt deceived and betrayed. She had opened her heart to Matthew, trusted him, and now she felt like everything was built on a lie. Matthew's desperation grew as he reached out to her, trying to make her understand. He explained that while he had tested her, their connection was real. Caroline had given him her savings, the money she had worked so hard for, out of genuine concern and love. That selflessness had shown him her true heart, proving that she wasn't like the others. Her love wasn't based on what he had, but on who he was. That's how he knew her love was real. Caroline's tears finally fell as she struggled with her emotions. She wiped them away, trying to make sense of everything. She could see why he felt the need to hide who he was, but it still hurt to know that he hadn't trusted her enough to be honest from the start. She had always valued honesty and felt betrayed by the lies. But deep down, she could also see the pain he had carried, the fear of being used again. That fear had driven him to disguise himself, but in doing so, he had risked losing the very thing he was searching for. After a long silence, Caroline finally took a deep breath. Her voice was calm but tinged with sadness. She admitted it was a lot to take in, and that it would take time to fully forgive the deception. However, she also acknowledged that the love they had built was strong and real. It wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to give their relationship a chance, if Matthew promised that there would be no more lies between them. Relief washed over Matthew as he heard her words. He quickly agreed, vowing that from this point forward, he would be completely honest with her. No more secrets, just the two of them being real with each other. It was all he wanted, to build a life with Caroline based on trust and love. For a moment, they both stood there in silence, the air thick with a mixture of tension, hope, and the promise of a fresh start. Then Matthew took her hand again, and this time, Caroline didn't pull away. Her eyes held a softness, a willingness to move forward, but with caution. She spoke gently, expressing that she was ready to start fresh, but only if they took things one step at a time. Matthew smiled, overwhelmed with gratitude. One step at a time was more than enough for him, as long as they were walking that path together. After revealing the truth to Caroline and finally gaining her trust, Matthew knew it was time to introduce her to his family. He had never felt so sure about anyone before, and he wanted both his parents to meet the woman who had captured his heart with her kindness and humility. First, Matthew took Caroline to meet his father. The older man had always wanted Matthew to settle down with a woman who loved him for who he was, not for his wealth. When he met Caroline, he could see right away that she was different. Her warmth, humility, and respect were obvious in the way she greeted him. Matthew's father smiled widely, instantly accepting her and welcoming her into their family. He could tell she was the one who would bring Matthew the happiness he had been searching for. Next came the introduction to Matthew's mother. Matthew's mother had always been protective of him, especially after seeing how many women had tried to take advantage of him. When she first met Caroline, she was polite but clearly skeptical. She worried that Caroline might be pretending, just like the others before her. But Matthew's mother decided to observe Caroline closely during her stay. Caroline, unaware of the doubts in Matthew's mother's heart, simply behaved as she always did, with respect, kindness, and a willingness to help. Although the house was filled with maids to handle all the chores, Caroline insisted on doing things herself. She woke up early to prepare breakfast, cleaned the house, and took care of every detail. Her cooking was simple but delicious, and she always made sure everyone was well fed. More than that, Caroline treated Matthew's parents with genuine care and respect. She listened to his mother's stories with interest, helped her arrange the kitchen, and never acted entitled or demanding. As the days went by, Matthew's mother began to see the true heart of this young woman. She realized that Caroline wasn't after money or status. She was simply a good-hearted person who wanted to make her loved ones happy. Slowly but surely, Matthew's mother's skepticism melted away, replaced by admiration and affection. By the time Caroline was ready to leave after her stay, Matthew's mother was completely in love with her. She hugged Caroline warmly and told her she would be honored to have her as a daughter-in-law. The family's approval was complete, and Matthew felt a deep sense of joy and relief, knowing that the two most important people in his life truly accepted Caroline. A few months later, Matthew and Caroline got married in a beautiful and simple ceremony. The celebration was filled with joy, laughter, and love. Caroline's humility and kindness had won over not just Matthew, but everyone who knew her. The journey had not been easy, but they had found their way to each other through honesty, trust, and genuine love. This story teaches us that true love is not based on wealth, but on the heart and character of a person. Matthew learned that material possessions don't bring happiness, while Caroline showed that kindness, humility, and sincerity matter most in relationships. Trust and honesty form the foundation of real love, and even when mistakes are made, patience and forgiveness can help heal wounds. Lastly, humility and genuine care for others can win hearts and build lasting bonds. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.